Welcome back to Insight Review as we look back on the defining stories of the past 7 days. Now, North Korea's deputy ambassador in London defected this week to the south. Tae Yong-ho arrived with his family in Seoul, making him the highest-ranking diplomat ever to defect. South Korea's Unification Ministry has said he defected due to discontent with the regime and for the future of his children. Well, Nick and Lucy are still with me. And Lucy, you've made a relatively recent trip to North Korea, so you know what is left behind.
Yes, and one might argue not very much. I mean, it is an incredibly disturbed country, very psychologically damaged, one might say, so much propaganda, so much restriction. You know, we had to leave our mobile phones at the airport and there was no internet connection, and you're very much chaperoned everywhere you want to go. However, one of our guides did carry a fake Chanel handbag, so there is information that filters out. And if you imagine that the people who are diplomats, they come from a very, very narrow elite from that society. So he will have had access to probably very good schooling, but also lots of opportunities by being in other countries. And it's at that moment that you begin to see probably the fallacies of the regime that you've left behind. You know, you have access to international media, you have access to consumerism, and you see the things that you're not really allowed to see back home. And so my one curiosity is, why has he defected to South Korea? There are so many other places that perhaps he might have had contact with, where perhaps he might also not be under so much physical threat. I mean, you know, there is quite a lot of tension.
Well, the South Koreans are saying they're going to look after him.
I jolly well hope they are.
You'd think he would worry for himself and his family.
I would be worried for my family's safety, actually.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of tension between the two countries.
Clearly, he won't be able to continue living in London, where his family's grown up, they have teenage children.
They have teenage children who've been at school and things like that. But there are other countries that I'm sure he could have gone to. I'm just very curious that he's gone back to Korea in a way. He's gone to South Korea. So it's an extraordinary country. I can quite understand why he would be fed up with the propaganda that he's had to tell. This is what we found ourselves on the receiving end of. And, you know, that actually they have a very fixed view of how the world works and what their history is.
It's a steady stream of people, 814 during this period from January to July this year. It's slightly more than last year, but then the whole of 2015 actually has been a smaller number. But you can understand perhaps it's a huge weighing up. I mean, if you had to decide, do I do this for my family, but the physical threat to me, or the ideological disturbance, you know, you're leaving behind what you've known all your life, that's a hell of a big decision, isn't it?
Well, what intrigued me, and indeed Lucy can probably speak to this better than I can, but what intrigued me when I read the story is normally something like that, there is a trigger point. Something is coming that you decide, up with this I cannot put. I am going to risk my family's life. I am going to do this. And I wonder whether, and obviously we will never know whether they'd caught wind of the fact that he was thinking about it, whether he'd been deemed to be not towing the party line. But there will have been some sort of psychological trigger, won't there, that we said, right, this is it, I've got to run.
Well, what I want to know is it that he knows that something is happening in North Korea that he actually now has said that's it, that's enough? And there has been so much speculation about the weakness of the current leader and whether a lot of the sort of saber rattling is designed to shore up his support actually.
What, the bragging about nuclear weapon transport systems and all this?
Exactly. Yeah. That actually does this diplomat previously in West London, in Ealing, is there something that he knows about the regime that has actually made him decide, actually, I've got to quit, I've got to pull out now because it's just becoming too untenable, my belief in the system. But at the same time, yeah, why has he gone to South Korea? There is so much tension, there's a lot of spying that goes on, as you can imagine. So would you actually be really safe in South Korea? I'm not quite sure.
We shall have to keep an eye on that one, won't we? Let's go to Rio now, shall we, for a couple of stories to finish off our programme. Trouble for 2 US Olympic swimmers who were removed by Brazilian police from their flight home to be questioned about their accounts of being robbed at gunpoint. Gunnar Bentz and Jack Congo were taken for questioning at the police station in Rio's International Airport. Ryan Lochte, he's the senior swimmer, claims that James Fegan and his 2 other teammates were robbed on Sunday as they travelled back to the athletes' village. But hang on, Nick, it wasn't that simple, was it?
No, it wasn't that simple. It appears that they were covering up for what allegedly has been a rather nasty act of vandalism where the high spirits took over. So that's that one. But I'm going to, if I may, just strike a slight jingoistic note, because although that's a very important story, the one thing that I think here in Britain we can take from the Games, which is not just that the guys and girls have done fantastically, which is brilliant, but it's the sort of post-Brexit United Kingdom that's come about, because whichever side of the fence you were on, that vote could hardly have been any closer. There's certainly been a degree of disunity. There were families that weren't even talking. There were tensions in the workplace. The fact that that bunch of men and women have work like that, have turned in the most extraordinary performance. I think what I take from the games, notwithstanding that quite funny story about the Americans, because you've got to kind of laugh, what I take from the games is we've got a United Kingdom back.
Yeah, it is an incredible moment, actually, to think of that unity. And actually, so much of our focus is on the Olympics, whereas lots of other countries tend to focus on lots of other tournaments, whereas we tend to put a lot of our effort into the Olympics.
Well, we can't look at the football, can we?
Exactly.
There's absolutely no point.
Good at much else.
So we apart from tennis, I mean, Andy Murray has done us
Oh, no, he has, you're
all
right,
year.
well said.
But there is...
Just we must think about other contestants too, and dwell on the Americans a bit. But
Yep.
you're trying to say that this is actually a sort of post-Brexit Britain can survive as an independent country, or GB team does well.
Of course.
That's a bit of a joining some non-existent dots.
No, but Britain will survive. But we just needed a lift. The nation needed a lift.
I think we needed a reminder of how great we are.
And
as a
the other
country.
great thing, look at those athletes. They're black, they're white, they're mixed race, they're boys, they're from grammar schools or like private schools, or they're from state schools. It's the complete mix, and there's different ages. It is a fantastic advert for this country. It's the best. It's the best.
And of course, going back to the story that you led with,
it's
a very, very unfortunate story for the Americans, because it sounds like one of those kind of fisherman's tales where you say something and then somebody else says, and before you know it, the tale has expanded.
Yeah.
And these four lads were obviously out having fun. I don't know, maybe they were celebrating their
over-celebrating.
win, but over-celebrating. And it kind of got out of hand. And once you told that story, it unravelled.
Well, it's another nature, I think, the international nature of these things. I think the story got relayed back home. Oh, there's a bit of bother, whatever. We got robbed or something like this. And then suddenly somebody begins to check and join the dots. Let's just mention another man, though, who I'm interested about why you behave like this. Patrick Hickey, he is, Europe's top Olympic official. Now, he had to step down on Thursday this week from all his roles. It comes after he was arrested for his alleged involvement in a scheme to resell Olympic tickets at a higher price. Now, Hickey was rushed to hospital shortly after police arrived at his hotel to arrest him. But I don't know. You've got a great job. You're part of this Olympic movement. Everything seems to be going swimmingly, Americans aside, perhaps. Why do people, Lucy, you might get inside their head, why do they risk, for the sake of a few extra dollars?
Well, that's the
making
word.
A few bucks?
It's the risk. You could argue that people who rise to the top have a lot of sort of risk-taking abilities. They often also have a sense of entitlement, and I suspect that something along these lines is happening here, where you almost think that the rules for little people don't apply to you. But sometimes the very things that get you to the top of your profession are the very things that are your undoing. And risk-taking is a very key thing. It can sometimes be linked to levels of testosterone, where you have more of that, and you just think, I can get away with it. I've got away with pretty much everything else. I'm up here. I think I'll try a bit.
But the
higher.
largesse involved. You are an Olympic official. You have the ability to give your friends, your mates, your business acquaintances the chance to go to the Olympics at a decent price.
Yeah.
Why do you then have to make a profit out of that?
Because I don't think they live lives like the rest of us normal folk. They think a sense of entitlement. And if I bring it into the sphere of politics, how many times have we seen all around the world senior politicians undone by the most crass and basic levels of greed? And I think it's rules don't apply. Yeah. We can get away. This is what we do. Whether we're in politics, whether we're in the Olympics, well, this is what we do, and I'm above it all. There's a sense of that.
And I think it is. It goes back. It is about greed, but it's about saying, I have those talents that can get me to that level, and in the end, that will actually be my undoing, because I will try just that little bit too hard. I'm too greedy.
But the games, as we conclude our conversation about them, have been a success. All the great alarmists talk about Rio being a bit of a disaster. I know that those are difficult juxtapositions of the wealth and the success and the glamour of the games against very difficult living conditions for some people in Rio. But broadly, I think Brazil's done well.
Yes, I would agree. Let's talk about, we've got the Paralympics to come as well. So we're going to see those I would argue, even braver men and women that we've still got, and let's hope those games go. Yeah, we've had a green pool, we've had a little bit of dysentery and disease and God knows what else, but no, nothing.
Strange things in the bay.
Yes, nothing like what was feared. Crime waves.
So
unless you're talking to American swimmers, of course.
I do actually hope that the nation, that Brazil, takes away from this amazing sense of achievement that they've pulled this off.
Lucy and Nick, thank you both very much. But let's stay with the Olympics for our Insight Bite today. How would you feel about a surprise wedding proposal from your partner? Well, how about this one, which happened in front of the world's media after the women's diving final? Chinese diver Qin Kai decided to take the plunge and get down on one knee during the medal ceremony for his girlfriend, He Ji. She had just taken silver in the women's 3-metre springboard, but clearly she wasn't expecting her big win was about to be upstaged. The proposal drew some criticism online, with some viewers angry that Qin Kai's stunt has overshadowed his girlfriend's big moment. Others have said it was unfair to force the question on her with the entire world watching. Luckily for him, love seems to have prevailed, and she took home both the silver medal and his diamond ring. And that's all for now. I'm Martin Stanford. That was Insight.